Hey, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Liz, and today, while I am ordinarily joining you from the ancestral lands of the Monacan Nation, today I'm joining you on the road from New York State, Mohican land, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. And if you are new to exploration of the sacred feminine, then I would encourage you to check out my award-winning book, Home to Her, Walking the Transformative Path of the Sacred Feminine. And actually, even if you're not new, maybe you want to check it out anyways. Hopefully, there'll be something there for you too. There are also so many past podcast episodes you can explore as well. So if you haven't had a chance to dive into the catalog, there's 5 years of back episodes you can check out. So please do that too. And at this point, I've been researching, writing, teaching about the ancient wisdom of the feminine for more than a decade, and it has taught me so much, particularly about my understanding of power. And that's something that I've realized in the last couple of years in particular. I think as women, many of us are working with a tiny fraction of the full range of our power. And one of the reasons for this is because our understanding of it has been defined by and taught to us by cultural structures and institutions that were created without any input or even participation from women, which is kind of a big miss. So, a simple truth that I know is that those systems can't teach us what they don't know and what they don't have exposure to. So, to that end, I'm offering a select number of mentorships for women who want to learn how to access and embody their full power using these methods that I've learned from my 10 plus years of exploration of what I refer to as the deep feminine. This is kind of intense work, maybe not for everyone, but if this sparks any kind of curiosity or an inquiry in you, then please do reach out and let's talk. You can send me an email at liz@hometoher.com, or you can go to my website, hometoher.com, and book a discovery call with me where we can talk. And I would love to hear from you. And so, with that, let's get on with our show. So, my guest today, it's an amazing thing. I've been living in Central Virginia for about 4 years now, and I just keep encountering the most amazing people. And I had this story when I left California that maybe I wouldn't find my people. Maybe they were all back in the Bay Area, and that's so not been the case. And so I met my guest today through a workshop that she was leading around intuition. And relative to what I was saying about power, this idea of embodied power, the idea of having access to many different ways of knowing has been central to my exploration of the sacred feminine. They've gone hand in hand. And of course, that's evidenced by a lot of the history and the mythology as well. And so my guest, she just held such beautiful space, just such kind, open heart, and deep wisdom. And I knew that I really wanted to have her join me here. And yeah, so here she is. So let me go ahead and introduce her to you now. Emma Andrews is a highly acclaimed intuitive, medium, and intuition teacher. Emma's gift of seeing energy, combined with her training in energy healing and somatic therapy, make her one on one intuitive sessions a transformational force in many people's lives. In addition to working with individuals, she also leads retreats, teaches at festivals, and is the creator of the popular online course, The Intuitive Method. She lives on Monacan land, Virginia, with her herd of goats, which, we're going to have to talk about the goats. Emma, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much, Liz. Your that whole intro just made me so emotional. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here and feel so grateful.
Oh, same. And now I'm getting emotional. It's kind of a joke if people listen to the podcast. I'm like, if guests make me cry, that's like a whole thing. So who knows? We'll see what happens. Well, one of the places that I really like to talk or start when I talk with people is hearing a little bit about your spiritual background growing up. And uh, I am just curious about these things, first of all, but I do think, and especially relative to intuition, I don't know about you, but for me, being raised in a traditional Christian Southern Baptist home, like that idea of inner knowing was just not, it was almost seen as like those two things don't belong together. So I don't know. I just would love to hear you talk about kind of what those experiences were for you growing up.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, in a pretty suburban, kind of close knit community. And I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to through high school. And so the teachings of the Bible and the teachings of the Catholic Church were something that was very present in my life growing up. But I do remember that sense of like, this is the knowledge, but if I can't access that for myself, right? Like the knowledge will be taught to me or given to me or said to me, like told to me, but it's not something that I can find myself or really feel is true myself or be validated in that. And one of the stories that I like to tell is about I became a medium. I'm a medium now, but looking back, I see how those gifts of communicating with loved ones, of communicating with spirit, really were nurtured in a lot of ways through my religious upbringing. And one of them was when I was, oh gosh, maybe like first grade to sixth grade, like that time of adolescence. Every time I went to church and we would pray, I would talk to my loved ones who had died, and I would hear them talk back to me. And I remember very clearly an understanding that this was real, like it felt so real to me, but it didn't feel real to bring it out or to share it with anyone. Like this is a real thing inside me, this is a real conversation I'm having. I had no doubt about that, that the things I was hearing from my deceased loved ones was real. But I also knew it wouldn't be real. It wouldn't be accepted outside of me. So I remember from a very young age having that awareness. And eventually I sort of shut that down and stopped having that open communication, that open dialogue with spirit.
So fascinating. And do you mind, can you say more about how your religious upbringing made space for that? Was it just like being in the space of prayer that kind of created that, held the container for you, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, so I think that's what it was. There was dedicated times of silence during the services, especially like in a Catholic mass, you have the Eucharist and then it's quiet and everyone prays. And so that was the time when it was quiet. There wasn't music, there wasn't talking. Everyone's expected to be very inward and praying. And those were the times when I would have those conversations. And I do think it was because it was this container of quiet and reflection. And I was looking around me. I remember looking around me saying, like, what are the adults doing? Like, what are we supposed to be doing now? And then thinking, oh, well, I guess I'll talk to, my grandpa who had passed or my uncle who had passed. And it became a very important part of my life.
And at what point were you like, I've got to shut this down? Like how old were you, do you think?
I think it was entering like those teenage years. I think it was entering that like puberty time. Yeah, I think it was probably sixth or seventh grade when we do become so much more aware of other people and yeah, the people around us and we become more, what's the word, like self-aware. And so I think it was during that time that I stopped.
Well, and I know the workshop that I went to with you, you told a really beautiful and powerful story about how those intuitive gifts kind of came online for you in more of this phase of your life. And I wonder if you would be willing to share that with our listeners today. It really spoke to me.
Oh, absolutely. So if we start there at when I shut down those gifts.
Yes, and fill in the gaps, please. Like, are you get us
Oh,
there, however makes sense. Yes.
if we start there, so I entered my teenage years and things were pretty sort of steady. There wasn't anything that really stood out. But once I was 18 and went to college, I developed chronic illness and chronic pain. And so I had a lot of really debilitating hard symptoms and I was getting diagnosed with different things but nothing was helping with the pain. So I had 4 years, all 4 years of college, I was in a lot of pain and I didn't have a lot of answers from the Western medical model. So I had to look for solutions, look for relief in other places. So I started learning about alternative healing modalities and started going to therapy and getting acupuncture and just really diving into all of these different ways of healing our energy. And one of the things that I was learning about at the time was I was reading The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle's, and it just burst my world open. I mean, it's such a powerful text. And so I was working on the meditation. I was working on being present in my body, being present with my emotions. And it was during one of my meditations that I was doing a non-attachment meditation when you sort of imagine your thoughts and then you imagine them sort of floating by like clouds and you let them go. You notice them and you let them go. And I had this awareness come in, and it was like I'm very visual, so it was like this big pink cloud that was like bigger than the house I was in. This big pink cloud. And with it came a message that someone in my family was going to die. And I thought it was just a thought. So I said, okay, go on. Next. And so I let it go. And then it came back even bigger. And this cloud was just filled with the most expansive, unconditional love. And the message when it came through was so loving. Like, and when I say someone in your family is going to die, you get activated a little bit, right? That's a really scary thing. But when the message came through, I just felt loved. I just felt like everything is going to be okay. I felt held. And that was very strange to me. I was like, these things don't go together. What is happening? Where is this coming from? It doesn't feel like it's coming from me. So I sat up and I wrote it down, and I told my boyfriend at the time, he's now my husband, and he was like, that's so weird. And then about a week later, my dad had a heart attack and passed away. And the impact of his passing was very distressing, as it would be. It was a shock, but it was also a shock to me that I had gotten a heads up, that I had had some precognition about this event happening. And I didn't know it was going to be my dad. I just knew it was someone in my immediate family. Well, I didn't even believe that it was true. So, but when it ended up happening, it really burst that open. And I continued to meditate following his passing. I continued to meditate, and he started to come to me. And the first time that I meditated was actually on the way home from the hospital. So it was directly following his passing. And this meditation had been something that I had been using to cope with pain. So I was really used to dropping in. So I was in the car, I dropped in, and right away I saw his face in front of me. And he gave me a very specific message. He said, I love you. I've given everything I have to you. And can you pass on the rest to your brothers? I have 4 younger brothers. And then he walked back behind me and was gone. And in that moment, when he walked behind me, he touched my shoulder, and I felt this huge release of like all the earthly stuff, like the to-do lists and the thinking and planning and all those things. I just felt all that release, which was very profound. For me, it took my breath away. And so at this point, I thought I was hallucinating. I thought this is just what happens to people when they lose someone. They try to bring them back and imagine that they're with them or what they would say. So I still didn't fully believe myself until a few weeks later. I was at a party, and an acquaintance came up to me and she said, Emma, sometimes when people that I know pass, they come to me. And the night your dad passed, he came to me, and can I share with you what he told me? And I was like, of course, please. And she said, he said he's given everything he has to you. And could you pass on the rest to your brothers? And I was like, no. Oh my gosh. And from then on, I stopped meditating because I was so scared by the bigness of that, like by being able to access that kind of information. It really overwhelmed me. So then I stopped meditating for about 9 months. And then one day I woke up and I was like, it's not scary anymore. I'm ready. I want to learn more about that. I want to figure out how that was possible. Well, how did that happen? Because it was such a gift for me, Liz. It was such a gift that I had that connection with spirit through that really tough time. I was able to honor the beauty of my dad's life and his death, the beauty of it. I was able to I felt so ecstatic through the grief. I would have moments of just ecstasy of like, wow, we're alive and how precious this is. And he's not gone. I can feel him. And it was so profound and life altering. So I really wanted to figure it out and access it again and not just when the really big hard things happen, but like for the good things and the simple things and the easy day-to-day things. How can I get that to work for me? And how can I share this with other people so that it can help them in their lives?
Yeah, I love that. It's so so beautiful. And as you were saying that, I was remembering, and it's, if you're somebody that's listened to the podcast for a while, you might have, I feel like I repeat my stories, but I was interviewed, I don't know, a few years ago on another podcast, and I remember this guy that was doing the podcast. I was telling about my own sort of awakening experience, which is it's in my book, I was at a business conference, totally different circumstances, but he asked me, like, he said something like, well, we kind of get wake up calls all the time, though. Like, why did you actually listen to this one? And I was like, no, you don't understand. It wasn't like a little tap on the shoulder. It was like like it was like coming from the heavens. And that's kind of what I was thinking, especially when your friend delivers that message. It's like there's, I mean, I can understand why you would shut that down because we don't really have that cultural framework. We don't have yeah, we just don't have stories around like how this works. But I can also see how it would be impossible. Like that's not a gentle knock on your door. That's like a kick the door in. Hey, Emma, this is important. You need to pay attention, right?
Right, right. And it also felt to me because I knew it was like, this isn't just something for me. Like this power I was accessing is for me to share.
Yes.
I think that's what, like, if we go back to my early years when I was talking about, like, I had that experience in here, but I didn't want to bring, right? It was inviting that expression.
Yes.
And throughout my dad passing, like throughout that time, like the funeral and those weeks following, I was very outspoken about my experience with people who would come. I I told everybody about it. I was very outspoken about the experiences I had, and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and I'd be like, "Yeah, I know, but he's still here." And they probably thought I was a little
Yeah.
kooky, but yeah, I knew that it wasn't just for me to experience, it was also for me to it was a gift that I had and that I had to learn about and embody.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to ask you how your family sort of responded to this. And then there's also an instant curiosity of like, this is this in your lineage? Like this is a pretty powerful thing. Like I'm who's the wise grandma down the line that was working this? I don't know if you know any of that or if that's present, but yeah.
I don't know, but not in our family, like, oral history. I don't know about that being true, but I do believe that this is something that everyone has access to in some form, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. And did your family were they okay? Did you share this with your I don't know if your parents were together or, like and brothers, but like, how did they respond to this?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think everyone experiences grief differently, and I think that was really clear with my family. Like, my youngest brother was 10, so he was really young when my dad passed. And yeah, I think everyone interpreted it differently. I know my mom she is very religious, she's very devout, so anything that I tell her, she runs it through that that paradigm, that rule book, if you will. Yeah, I think a lot of people believed me, but a lot of people didn't like really get it, but they believed me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think I was having a conversation recently with my mom. We our relationship has evolved so beautifully over the last 11 years or so since I've been on this journey. But I think for her, a very similar. Well, for her, she was running it through a religious framework that didn't
Mhm.
have a storyline. Like there wasn't a connection, so it scared her initially. I think like this path that I was on, she was a little bit frightened by it. And also for me, some things came up that had been, there was a hand in hand experience of like suppressed emotions, stories, like some childhood trauma, and all of it kind of surfacing once this stuff starts opening. And so that was coming out at the same time, this. And so, yeah, she told me that she thought it was like kind of like not healthy energy initially. And I do think that's not all that uncommon because we don't have a frame of reference around it really.
Mhm. Right. And anything that we don't understand, or if we haven't seen it before, it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I am wanting to presence the feminine here, and I really want to give you space to talk about what that means. But as you know, like my interest area is the sacred feminine, and in my understanding over the years, I I was just sharing this. I was being interviewed yesterday, and I was just sharing this. I think it's you look at certain indigenous cultures, something like this may not necessarily be connected to the feminine, but that's because the feminine was never really repressed in those cultures in the first place. Versus for me being of European heritage, there's so much around the feminine that's been repressed and deemed as lesser. And then certain qualities and attributes sort of get tied to that and also designated as lesser too. So I think there's a little bit of like is this inherent to the feminine? I want to hear your perspective on that.
I do, at least that's how I understand it from my culture and the different frameworks that I've been a part of. I do understand it as feminine because intuition is like tapping into collective energy. And for me, the divine feminine is collective energy. It's not like one thing, right? It's all, all creation, all together. And when you're talking about like in the beginning of the intro of this episode, like with power, right? Power with the divine feminine is power with,
Absolutely.
as opposed to power over. And so the intuition, when you're tapped into your intuition, it's not like your ego and thoughts. Like it's not just you. You're accessing this ocean of intelligence. And that's one of the most fascinating parts about exploring your intuition because the solutions that come your way aren't just beneficial for you. You're like tapping into this like network and web of well-being for all life. And so, like, you might be someone else's synchronicity. You might, you might save someone's life just because you turned right instead of left. You're accessing collective, this collective dance that is really, really profound. And I believe most indigenous cultures, they have access to that intuitive language. And even like in, Western cultures, you go back and they had it there too, right? In the ancient Celtic world, that's how they would know when to plant things or navigate across land, or they had this way of acting with intention and accessing information that wasn't just from like a mental analytical place. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think I want to ask for you too. So you, picking back up the thread of your story. So you kind of took a break, then turned towards this, realized, wow, this is a gift. I want to explore it. And how do you do that? Because right there's a I don't know if there's any kind of disconnect for you or like, but the way we typically learn about things is through books and experts and all this. But you're talking about something that's I mean, I don't know how you define intuition. Maybe I give you a second to say that too, but it's inner knowing, right? So like how does one cultivate that, in that kind of traditional framework? What do you do?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's such a good question. And that was something that I came up against. I had this longing, I had this desire, and I was like, where do I get it? Right?
Yeah.
Where, who's going to tell me how to have it? Right? Because, that's how that spiritual connection was taught to me with my Catholic upbringing. And actually, it was taught that it's somehow goes against the teachings to access it yourself. Like only a priest can call in the Holy Spirit and bless things, and only a priest can like forgive and like there's this whole thing about like that male authority having that access to that. So intuition I define as energetic information from beyond your brain. So there are many different ways of receiving intuitive information. There are many different kinds of intuitive information. It can be like knowing your dog has to go to the bathroom when they don't give you a sign for it, but you might just know, or you might just know that what they're saying, that they need something from you, even if they haven't, moved from the other room, but you have a sense of that. Or it could be something like thinking of a friend and then they call you, or being in a really deep state of flow, like a lot of creatives when they're playing music or they're making art or they're writing, are accessing this collective, this ocean of collective energy and intelligence in order to, yeah, to channel, really, to channel that into the world. There's mediumship, which is something that I do, which is communicating with people who've died. That's another form of intuition. There's many different forms. Dreams that can come through so many different ways because the world is so much more than just the physical experience. This is just one like layer, but there's so many other layers, even when you get into the energetics world, and there's layer and layer and layers of different ways of understanding things or perceiving things, or yeah, it's really, it's endless.
So what did you do? Like, did you like hold space for it? Were you like, I'm not going to doubt myself? Like, did you just kind of like, how did you go about?
Yeah, so it's something that I think I'll always be in process with, because what it is when you begin to explore your intuition, what you're really doing is you're building a relationship with yourself. So you're saying, which is something that is we're not taught to do as women, say, I believe you, I value you, trust you. I'm going to do what you need. I'm going to take care of you. Even if my brain says I need to stay at the party, if I feel ready to go, I need to be able to take care of myself and honor that voice that's coming through. So, the first step to really connecting with your intuition is connecting with your physical body and your physical needs. And that's the first thing that I teach in my course is I teach people how to begin to be in tune with that voice, right? Because that's your inner voice too that says, I gotta pee, or I'm hungry, right? And how many times do we say, not right now, not right now. I got to finish my work. I got to do other things. I got to take care of everyone else. As women, we're taught to defer our needs. And so that first step, and this was the first step I took, was healing my body and learning how to come into my body and meet my own needs and have that relationship so that my system knew if I tell her something, she'll listen. And it starts with those really basic needs. And then once you build that relationship, that little part of you will start to grow and it will start to feel more safe to share more challenging things, or things that, might be harder for you to do, like leaving a party, even if you think you should be there. That's a lot harder than just going to the bathroom when you need to go to the bathroom. And actually, the most common way that I found in my teaching the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years I've done with almost all my workshops and trainings I've done, I do the same exercise. And I would say 80% of the people I do this exercise with receive intuitive information through the felt sense, through the physical body. So it's a feeling of lightening, or it's a feeling of heaviness, or a feeling of constriction or release. And that's what giving that information of, yes, this is good, or no, this isn't good for me. So coming into the body, learning to be in the body and be with what's there is essential.
Yes. So good. There's a couple things that sparked in my head that I wanted to just weave in. The one was when you were talking about back what you were saying about like the layers of energy. Yeah, I had an intuition teacher that I worked with for 2 years when I lived in California many years ago. And one of the first things she told me is she's like, this is the middle kingdom. Everything's here. It's all here. Everybody's here. It was exactly what you're saying. Like just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it's not here. And then the other thing that she told me that I feel like you're speaking to too is because I had this big question in the beginning of like, well, how do I know if this is my intuition or just my predisposed ideas of things or whatever? And she's like, well, I mean, you're only going to find out if you trust it. You got to follow it. Like you might as well follow it, and then you were going to learn something as you follow it. So that cultivating that trust was so important. And I don't know if you've seen this, Emma, I'd love to hear you talk about this, but it seemed like, kind of what went hand in hand with that work was also this beautiful uncovering of some preconceived notions, some patterns that were formed in me from childhood, about the ways in which I saw the world. And so there was like this beautiful simultaneous like breaking down of these boxes of ways of thinking that I didn't know that I was in. And then, here kind of gently comes in more of the intuitive knowing as those things break down. Does that feel kind of like your experience too?
Oh, yeah, that's just such a beautiful description of that experience of like being between those two worlds.
Mhm.
I really love that. And I do want to speak to, because I didn't mention this, I have had some amazing teachers as well. So that was one of the things that I did was I found teachers. I found some amazing groups of women that I worked with. So I just want to take a moment to recognize my amazing teachers that I have, and they've made such a difference.
Yeah. Well, and I also wanted to ask you too because what I noticed for me, sometimes have felt a little hesitant to talk about some of the experiences that I've had only because there's such a tendency to compare. So I feel like I would not be surprised, you tell me, but I would not be surprised if people are like, well, I'm never going to have an experience of a pink cloud and a voice, telling me that somebody that I love is going to die. Like my gifts aren't like that. I can't do that. I'm not that open or whatever. And I wonder I wonder if you do hear that and how you respond to that and how you speak to that.
Yeah, that's really common, and I think that's why I love doing that exercise so much with people so they can learn their own language, because we each have a unique language that our system communicates to us. And as you develop it, as you grow that relationship, it changes and it strengthens, and your intuitive like language is influenced by your world experience, by your history and background. So for you, Liz, you've done so much research and into the divine feminine. So when that intuitive information comes in, it's going to be informed, like it might use symbology that you are aware of, that it's kind of like with dreams. Like when you dream, you recognize things and interpret things in a way that's unique to you. So that's the same with intuition. It's unique to everyone, and no two people have the same intuitive experience. But the key and the difference, I think, between someone who thinks those thoughts and is comparing and me and where I've come to is that I have learned to believe in the subtle. So that pink cloud for some people, they might have just brushed off.
Yes.
I have learned to really believe and acknowledge the subtle, and I take the subtle and I bring it up and I put it in front of me. I bring it closer, even if the mind is being really loud. And that's what's hard for people, right? That that talking, "Oh, I could never do that pink cloud," right? That's a mental thought. And our mental thoughts are so loud. We're used to having them like right here in front of us and like sort of wrestling with them all day. Like there's this like sort of tangible physical presence that we can have with our thoughts where we feel like they feel very present. But intuitive energy is neutral. So there's no emotional like, ah, I have to do this. It's very neutral and it's very subtle and soft. So I've learned to identify that, to say, oh, that was really soft and neutral. I'm bringing that up here. And I'm going to pay attention to it. I'm going to write that down in my journal. I'm not going to write down like, I have to do this thing. And this is, all of the like crazy thoughts that are just trying to take my attention. I'm going to shift my attention on to what's subtle and neutral. And that's what we need to learn to do. Such that the pink cloud, it very much could have been something that was very soft and subtle, but I was used to really giving weight to those little whispers.
Yes, thank you for saying that. And I want to add to that because for me, like the experience that I had of this kind of awakening at the business conference, it was not subtle. Like my whole body got set on fire, is what it felt like in a very good way. It was loud, very, very loud. And who knows? Like we are the ones that are making meaning out of our own lives, right? Like nobody else is. Nobody else is in here creating a story about what this means except me. So I'll go ahead and acknowledge that. But what seemed to make sense to me is that in that experience for me, I was on a particular trajectory that was perhaps not going to serve this incarnation of this soul in this lifetime. And there was an opening and an opportunity to be like, hey, 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 maybe you're going to want to go this way because this is kind of what you actually signed up to do here. And it, I don't know that it takes that loud of an experience for everybody to get on the right track, or maybe I was really off track. I don't know. But the vast majority of the time, since I think it's to your point, I do pay much more attention to the subtle feelings in the body. So they're not actually subtle because I know I have awareness around them, but they're also not nearly as loud as that. Like I think that was a moment, of like attention. And I don't know how you relate to that, but like I equate that to your friend coming up and saying the exact same message that you received from your father, which was like, "Hey, Emma, I'm going to get your attention here because this is important to who you are in this lifetime." I don't know how that feels for you, but
Absolutely. Yeah. That's not to say that intuitive information, it can't be loud, but most of the time it is really soft and subtle. And I think you having that experience, you being able to like have that experience and interpret it as an awakening, as something that was unique and strange. Some people that maybe that would happen to and they'd be like, oh, I have indigestion. Or like something weird's happening, right? But because of what you were listening to, because of where you were at, the things that you were interested in at the time, and you'd been prepared for receiving that and understanding the experience
yeah.
in the moment when it happened, which is beautiful. I mean, humans can be having like that ecstatic on fire experience all day long. Like I think there probably are many people that do.
That's great.
Like the Dalai Lama, some of these like amazing spiritual teachers, they talk about who is it? There's a qigong master, and he talks about how all day long he's just having an orgasm because the energy is moving. So that like that loudness, that like aliveness is very real and a beautiful thing and something that we're all capable of accessing and feeling.
Yes. No, I love that. And I also am wanting, I think, because it's me, I'm wanting to weave in sort of like the larger cultural framing of why we dismiss this. And I do think there's whether or not you were raised in a religious household, I don't really think it matters. If you're listening to this in the United States, which most of my listeners are, but perhaps in Europe as well, there's we have a framework of hierarchy of knowledge, and that is absolutely reflected in our religious traditions, which tell us there's this paternalistic Father God who's up here, who is sort of doling out wisdom and punishment and whatever. And then there's like kind of the stepping down. And so we we just don't have the framework for trusting ourselves. And I think that is especially true for women. So we have to work with those blocks as well. And to your point, starting to trust and starting to listen inside. And I say this in my book, and I want to make it clear here too. Like, I'm not anti-expert anything. There are people who have dedicated their lives to learning subject matters. And yes, like, let's respect that. It's just, we don't have to choose, perhaps, is what I would say. I don't know. I don't know what you would say to that, but like, we get to have our own inner knowing, even as we respect others' wisdom too. But it doesn't get to override what's happening here inside.
Right. Right. And there's no teaching. I was never taught how to be with an emotion. I was never taught how to be in my body. I was never taught to believe myself. So I think that was the hardest. I love being honest about what's been hard, right?
There,
Hard
please.
right after my awakening. Was scared because people need to know, like, if you're scared, that's okay. And so one of the hardest parts was the communicating about it to people and really like working through all of that like patriarchal conditioning within myself that I had taken in and then being in the world and coming up against it, coming up against the doubt and the like, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are believing yourself? Who do you think you are speaking honestly and openly? We didn't get to do that. Why do you get to do that? Coming up against that, it hasn't been easy, and I think it's scared a lot of people. I think there are a lot of women that see women who are outspoken and connected to themselves, and it can be terrifying
Yeah.
because they don't have the support to access it. And I think it's our job as women, and I think that's part of the work that we're doing on a bigger scale is creating, and you with this beautiful podcast and all the work you've done is creating that community that people need to know they're not alone and to take their time and know that there are other ways of being in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think you've already started guiding us this way, but I'm curious, what would you tell listeners? So, because one of the things that loved about, I love about you and what you're saying, and also when I saw you speak, it sounds like you want to help people cultivate this. It's not like you are setting yourself up. Like, you can help people, right? You can receive messages for them, and you want people to be able to do this on their own, right? Like, so what would you tell, I think you started that already about, like, really listening to the body, but what would you tell people who are like, okay, I'm in, or maybe I've had a couple of hits here and there, like, I want to know more, like, how do I do this? What would you say to them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's something that's been so important for me from the start. I When I do sessions with people, I'm very clear you can access this information. And my sessions are just to show you what's possible and to inspire you. Then here's how you can do it for yourself. The teaching is so important because that's where it's different, right? And I really wanted to be clear, like, I'm not here as an authority to tell you about your energy. I'm here to inspire you to access it for yourself. That's what I've loved about this somatic therapy work that I've been doing with clients is supporting them in coming into their bodies and being present with things together. We can feel it together because none of us need to do any of this alone. That's another old way of doing things, like having to figure it out on your own. There's a new reality possible, which is receiving support all day long for all the little things, having someone with you. So I think what I would love to share with people and what has probably been one of the biggest gifts in my life is developing a really loving dialogue with myself. And when you are having intuitive experiences or when you're feeling things change, transitioning between worlds, like we were talking about, that the thing that can help you the most is being loving and kind to yourself at every moment. So that's like saying, sweetie, it's okay. I know today feels confusing. I'm so proud of you. This kind of talking to yourself, it's something I've had to learn. It's not typically the way we're taught to talk to ourselves, but we deserve absolute most love and compassion that we can muster. And it actually takes dedication, and it takes, oh, what's the word? Like, it takes like a fuck it kind of, like, this is what we're doing. We're going to be nice to ourselves right now. Like, we have to be like stern and say, no, we don't do that anymore. We don't talk to ourselves that way. We don't keep adding to-do lists and setting that bar higher and higher, right? As women, we have a bar we cannot ever reach in our culture, right? We can never get there. My brothers, I love them. They just had to lift a finger and they've moved a mountain. For me, the bar, I can't even see the bar. So as women, we have these expectations on us that we have to be a mother and a wife and all these roles, and we have to do it perfectly. And you still can't even see the bar. So we have to stand up for ourselves and say, not anymore, not in this world, not in my world. In this world, I am precious, I am adorable, and I speak to myself like I'm the cutest little stinking thing that's ever existed. And that work of developing that love for yourself, like that active love for yourself, it helps every aspect of your life, whether it's your intuition that you want to develop, or it's other things, or it's your spiritual growth, or not. It's just being in the world and getting through your day, like, it helps with everything. And it also helps with your thoughts. It's one of the top things that can neutralize your thoughts when you notice you're having those thoughts. If you say, "Oh, wow, I'm having a lot of thoughts today. I love you so much. You're working so hard." It will help you to take a breath and to come back down.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's what I want to share. I hope everyone after listening will just call themselves something so sweet.
Oh, I love that. And you know what? Because we're kind of winding down. Let's do it right now. Emma, say something amazing to yourself. Let's do it. I'm going to do it too. You go first.
Oh, out loud?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I am so proud of myself for doing this amazing podcast with Liz and for really, really being honest and showing up. And I'm so cute
You really are.
and so cute and sweet and honey, whatever you want. I'll take care of you today and I'll do whatever you need.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm going to tag onto that and just say I am so filled with gratitude that I listened and that I have followed this path that was definitely been scary. I mean, my whole life is everything, literally everything has changed, which I don't, by the way, I don't want that to scare other people. Yours might not have to, but mine has. And I am so grateful and proud of myself for living a life that is authentic and true to me, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And I'm proud, so proud of the life I've created. And yeah, I think I'm going to, whenever the end of my life comes, I think I'm still going to feel that way. I'm going to feel like I did it. I did it with a lot of courage and authenticity, and I feel great about that. So there we go.
I am proud of you too, Liz.
Oh, thank you. I'm proud of you. And so, like, we modeled it for you. Y'all listening, go do this for yourself. It feels really, really good. And I mean, the alternative, you can talk shit to yourself in your head, but that doesn't feel good. So you might as well do something that feels yummy and delicious.
I tell people you might as well even it out. But at the very least, you should be saying as many nice things as you are not nice things.
Yeah, totally. This has been so fun, Emma. Thank you so much for
Oh,
joining me. How can people find out more about you if they would like to learn about your work? I'll put it in the show notes too, but please.
yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram at Emma REWS, Emma Ruse. And my website is emma-andrews.com. You can book a session. I do phone and in person sessions in Charlottesville, Virginia. And if today inspired you, I'd love to hear and speak with you and support you on your journey developing your intuition.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, and I just realized, okay, please take 1 minute and tell us about your goats because I forgot to ask.
Um,
I need to hear about the goats.
So the goats are amazing because they grew that work grew alongside my intuitive development. And I think that there was a really strong, beautiful reason for it because they every day I take them out into the pasture and I let them graze. And so I have these dedicated times when, because I'm very type A. Like if I was just sitting at home, I would be trying to do things and sending emails and like setting things up. But because I have these beautiful creatures, they're like my meditation goats. They like encourage me to go spend time sitting on the earth and being present and really like grounding and connecting. I have a lot of animals. I have more animals than goats, but my herd is the best.
That's so cool. Okay. We can round up a picture of your goats and I'll throw it on social media so people can see it. Yeah.
That would be great. Yeah, I've got a lot.
Amazing.
My whole photo stream is goats. Bunnies. My bunnies are really cute.
Aw. I love it. Okay, well, I'll make sure to put your Instagram on our social on the show notes too, so people can go check out the goats and the bunnies and all the things.
And
Thank you so much for being here. This is such a joy. And as always, thanks to all of y'all for listening. And if you like the show, please do subscribe to it. If you're listening, it's on YouTube. So if you want to watch us, you can hop over and subscribe to the YouTube channel too. You can tell your friends about it. Pass this on. If you yeah, if you get a hit that somebody else needs to hear this, please do share it with them. It's not like we're drowning in information like this culturally. So I think spreading the word is really good. There was something else I was going to tell you to do. Oh, and like it? Was that what I was going to tell you to do? Yeah, like yeah, go like this episode or whatever. Yeah, that thing. Do that. And reach out if you have questions. You can always contact me. All of that contact info is in the show notes. And until next time, take such good care of yourselves, and I'll be with you again soon.